Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt, the Gameboy, will talk you through the highs and lows of the Gameboy library, one cart at a time. This week, to kick off July, we'll be looking at a game that is often requested, though I'm not quite sure why. It's The Amazing Spider-Man. So here we are again, folks, in another July, which means it's time for another July. July also means that most kids are on holiday, the sun is shining, and cinemas across the world are brimming with blockbuster movies. This week sees the release of Spider-Man Homecoming, another reboot of Marvel's tale of Peter Parker, the boy bitten by a radioactive spider and forced to learn that with great power comes great responsibility. So, to shamelessly cash in, I've decided to cover The Amazing Spider-Man, which is perhaps the closest experience one can get to feeling the pain of being bitten by an actual spider on our favourite handheld system. You see, folks, while The Amazing Spider-Man is made by Rare, a company held in high regard because of games like Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong Country, delving a little deeper into the company's back catalogue will reveal your fair share of clunkers. Games like Taboo, The Sixth Sense, and Time Lord that were surprisingly absent from the Rare Replay collection, though they were kind enough to give you Slalom and Solar Jetman. So if you'd like to experience the same levels of disappointment 5-year-old me felt after inheriting them alongside a hand-me-down NES, you're more than welcome to. If you went and did that, your expectations should now be securely lowered enough to watch this video on The Amazing Spider-Man, Rare's second game on the system after Wizards and Warriors X, Fortress of Fear, and actually the second superhero game to grace the Game Boy's green screen after Sunsoft's Batman. While Sunsoft's game was based off of the Tim Burton movie, Rare's efforts are mainly based on The Amazing Spider-Man comic book series, but that didn't stop them putting an amazing rendition of the Spider-Man TV show theme over the game's title card. The game's story is a simple one. Some of Spider-Man's rogues gallery have discovered Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Armed with this knowledge, Mysterio, the Hobgoblin, Scorpion, Rhino, Doc Ock and Venom kidnap Mary Jane and force Spider-Man to endure 8 of the most generic levels of side-scrolling beat-em-up ever conceived in order to save her. These levels take place in alleyways, rooftops, sewers and Central Park, populated by generic punks and pests for Spidey to beat down using the B button to punch and kick them into submission. By holding B, Spider-Man can also shoot a web that comes in handy for dealing with the increased gun-wielding gangsters in the later levels. Spider-Man naturally also features some basic platforming, and even a little bit of web swinging, though thanks to clunky controls, the most acrobatic of superheroes manoeuvres about as well in these sections as Aunt May might. Spider-Man has a regular jump by pressing A, however he can also jump higher by running and jumping. And that will be fine if the animation of Spidey at least indicated to you that you're running at the right speed to do a long jump. But it doesn't, either resulting in you failing to reach a platform, or in most cases just falling straight to your death. You are also able to swing from a web by pressing up and A, but this too is hampered by cheap enemy placences in the few instances where it's needed. 2 of the game's levels do actually break away from this side-scrolling format, however, and instead make the titular wall crawler do just that. In the first instance, only dodging falling barrels and bat-swinging maniacs that come through the windows, which can be easily avoided by the alerts from his Spidey sense. But the second occurrence is just there to kill you quickly. Birds, bullets and bats are there aplenty, with only a few hits depleting Spider-Man's limited health bar and wasting valuable lives, which can also incidentally be done by accidentally hitting A, causing Spider-Man to leap up and then fall to his death. This wouldn't be an issue, but you see, Rare only gives the player a total of 9 lives to beat the game. 3 per the game's 3 continues. And while you can collect hamburgers scattered around the world to restore Spidey's health, I haven't in any of my playthroughs seen or earned an extra life. With no passwords or a level select code either, you're just going to need to play the game, die, repeat until you've got it down. Seriously, I played this game for hours, so much so that I can clear the game's first 2 bosses without taking a hit, and that isn't even enough to get me through the game's end encounter with Venom. In the end, I just put the game down and walked away. If Mary Jane is this much trouble to save, well, Eddie Brock can keep her. There is very little positive to say about my experience playing The Amazing Spider-Man, but fortunately there is some cool stuff about it. For example, the between-stage talks with the bosses really do feel like early 90s Spider-Man writing to their credit, full of Spider-Man's punny banter and one-note villains. So at least they got the tone right. But the character portraits of the villains themselves seem to vary widely in quality, with Hobgoblin even seeming to be a quick reworking of the Green Goblin clearly visible in the game's manual. The best thing the game has going for it is its music, but as the game has no credits, I can't give it where it's due. With generic combat, clunky jumping mechanics, and a general dislike of the people playing the game, The Amazing Spider-Man unfortunately leaves a lot to be desired. While the Game Boy also saw the release of Spider-Man 2 and 3, those were not developed by Rare. Instead, LGN handed over the reins to another British studio, Bits Limited, which to my recollection at least were tough as nails, but at least those had some interesting ideas here and there. That discussion though, Game Boys and Girls, is for another time. Until then though, be sure to avoid The Amazing Spider-Man like, well, you would any other Spider-Man game. As remember, with great portable power, Game Boys and Girls, comes the great responsibility not to buy bad games. And that brings us to the end of another Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, check out some other videos and subscribe and share the channel around to those you think may be interested. I will be back next week with another licensed title, but until then, find me on Twitter at Gameboy and Facebook and Instagram at the same place. Game Boys and Girls, be sure to game on.